Start recording.
Um,
Uh,
I'm just gonna grab some headphones. So,
yeah, do that. You ready?
cool. Is this still good?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, it's the same. Okay, yeah, I'll just start it off then. Welcome everyone. My name is Ivor Harby, and I've started a project where I'm going to interview people from the fashion group High Fashion Talk. And I've never really done interviews before, so yeah, you'll have to excuse me if it's bad. But the first guest on the show is none other than Iolo, admin and creator of the group. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
Uh, so yeah, how old are you and like where are you from? We'll just start
Um,
really
I'm
simple.
27, so I'm pretty old in the group and kind of in the whole social media sphere in a way.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm from a town in North Wales, um, which is about 4 hours on the train away from London. Um, and yeah, there's no like fashion industry there. There's literally like it's very much just a tourist town. Um, and yeah, I'm from there, and I went to uni in Manchester for 3 years, and then went back for a few years to
Okay,
North
yeah.
Wales.
Yeah, because that was gonna be my next
Uh,
question. Like, is there anything interesting fashion-wise about the city? Is there like a certain style there, or is there like anything?
um, it's there's hardly anything. Like at school, like it was mostly like people in. Well, we had a school uniform, but otherwise we had most kids in like tracksuits, and then we'd have some emos and stuff.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Um, but like hardly anybody was actually into fashion or really knew anything about it. We had some rich kids that bought expensive clothes, but didn't really take any notice of fashion as a part of it.
Yeah, but it feels
Yeah,
like those people always exist that they just buy expensive things without
yeah,
real
yeah.
style.
Hmm.
But what was your first real fashion memory where like you realized fashion was something that either was a huge interest or even something you wanted to work with? Do you have a special like one memory or a face or anything?
I remember like when I was, God, it would have been probably around the year 2000.
Oh,
Um,
okay, yeah.
so I would have been about 10. Um, and I remember printing out like because online we didn't like back in the year 2000 there was literally nothing online on designers and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but I did print out the Wikipedia page for Dolce and Gabbana because I wanted to learn more about them.
Oh
Um,
shit.
I think I'd read an interview with them when they'd broken up and they were doing this interview about how they'd broken up as a couple, but they were still a very strong design team together.
Okay, yeah.
So I read that and in some like magazine that my grandmother got with a newspaper on a Sunday or something. And then yeah, I wanted to find out as much as possible. And it's weird to think that I actually thought about going online about it. Um, I literally just printed off the Wikipedia pages. And I found the actual printouts like in like a folder in like a box in my room like years later.
That's so nice.
Um, yeah, so yeah, it's weird to say that Dolce Gabbana was my entry into fashion. Um, but yeah, that was the earliest one I remember. And then I sort of gradually got more into fashion, but it was like back then it was impossible to actually buy real high fashion because like you'd have like there weren't any online shops. Like Amazon was, it was like you were considered like a whiz kid if you ordered books from Amazon. So like to buy clothes online wasn't a thing. Um, you'd have like department stores and like, but only like Selfridges and Harrods really stocked designer clothes. Um, or you'd have like really big like flagships, but only in like big cities. So it wasn't really feasible to buy high fashion like kids are doing these days. Um, so yeah, I didn't really buy that much high fashion, but I bought loads of magazines, starting with like Days and ID, and maybe like GQ and Esquire before then actually.
Okay, yeah.
Um, and then I think I got Arena and I remember they did um, a piece about, it was like Justin Timberlake wearing Raf Simons, and I
Huh?
didn't even know who Raf Simons was,
Yeah.
um, but I like literally fell in love with that editorial, and then I think I found like they did like those like Arab scarves, but as like normal scarves,
Yeah, 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 I remember that.
not on the top of your head. And I found one in like New Look, and remember like putting that on every like there was like one other guy in school who thought it was like the sickest thing ever and wanted me to buy one for him. Um, yeah, so like
So
small
you were
things
an
like that.
influencer like even a long time ago.
Yeah, before influencer was even a thing. Yeah.
That's sick. But you moved to London, was it earlier this year or last year?
It was last year in March.
Okay, yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's been about 18 months now, maybe a bit more. Um,
And was that like for, I assume it was for work?
yeah,
Because it seems like it wasn't really possible to do what you do from the small city with like no
yeah.
fashion world. And like, do you think you have to live in a big fashion city like London or Paris or Milano to be able to like make it in the fashion world, or well, what do you
Um,
feel about that?
I think to make it, it depends what you want to do in the fashion world. And but mostly, yeah, you have to be where stuff is happening because so much of getting actually into the fashion world is going to events, going to parties, going to
Yeah, like
um,
getting connections, definitely,
openings and
definitely.
networking. And it's really hard to do that unless the only other way I can see is social media. And then you can do social media wherever you are.
Yeah,
Um, so if it's not feasible for anybody to actually move to the city, I think if you grow your connections on social media, and I did that like for years before actually moving, um, and that's how I actually moved in the end. I literally was just adding loads of I would literally go through magazines, look at the mastheads and look at everybody who is like a photographer or a stylist on every editorial, and I'd find them on Instagram, find them on Facebook, follow them, request them, send them a message. Um,
oh
trying
damn.
not to be like too cringy or like I was probably very cringy because I didn't know better, but like I think I was consciously not like
Yeah, and it,
too
it seems like
much.
it's gotten results. Like you really made
Yeah,
it now. And
well,
to clarify for the few people who don't know you, you're a photographer.
yeah.
Yeah, you're.
I do photography and video quite a bit as well now as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. The Liam Hodges thing. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
There's
and
go on.
so let's talk a bit about high fashion talk. And well, what do you think about like the relevance of groups like High Fashion Talk or The Basement or whatever fashion group on Facebook? And like how good they are at introducing people to fashion and influencing them. Do you think it's just like a niche, or yeah, do you have any thoughts about groups like these and how what role they can play in people's lives?
I think Facebook groups, as opposed to Instagram, is way better for anybody that wants to get into fashion, because the obvious thing to do with Instagram is literally just to copy what the person you're looking at is wearing,
Yeah,
which has spawned this sort of copycat culture where people literally ask for an ID on an item and try to buy it, and that's like really weird to me. Like, for me, if somebody else has worn it, I don't want to wear it. Like, it jars me if I see somebody wearing something I've got, or even worse, if I see somebody wearing something I want to buy, it just annoys me because I'm like, I can't wear that anymore. That's like,
especially if they style it really horribly and they
yeah,
just ruin an item for you.
yeah, it's horrible. Um, but yeah, I think Facebook, because there's like way more an emphasis on actually talking, rather than just liking. Um,
Yeah, and like a two-way street. You actually
yeah,
discuss things. It feels like
hmm,
Instagram is just my Instagram, I just post and people look at it, but there's not much interaction and
yeah,
discussion. Just maybe if I
yeah,
follow that person too, but still it's very much a
mm,
one-way street compared to Facebook.
yeah. And even if there is any comments on a post on Instagram, they're like literally like just shallow like praise. There's no actual anything being discussed. And I don't think the platform is like conducive for anything like that. But Facebook, on the other hand, is completely like all about discussion and sort of um, sharing ideas and stuff, which is what people need to do to learn.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
there's only so much you can learn by copying people, and I think it really is kind of ruining fashion for young people, that they just copy, and that is the done thing to do.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. And
so
some
yeah,
people maybe not being aware of a deeper level of like fashion and fashion
yeah,
discussion being available, and they
yeah,
settle kind of
yeah,
for Instagram fashion.
yeah. Because I mean, lots of people won't even like, if you don't know something, you can't look for something. So you're not going to be looking for the show reviews or for like an interview with that designer online necessarily. Although kids increasingly are on stuff like YouTube, um, they don't seem. It's all seems to be like one to many. So like an influencer, or YouTuber, or whatever, sending information out to everybody, and there's no two-way street, which I think is a shame in a way.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So yeah, did you have anything more you wanted to say about that?
um, but yeah, also on the, I think Instagram has kind of reached its kind of peak, um,
I can
as
see
for
that.
its relevance and influence. I don't see how it can grow any bigger from what it is now. But I do think, um, Facebook is putting a lot of effort into their groups now, and they're growing, and we've reached like a second phase of groups, because obviously, like, groups, they're not even a second phase. There was like groups like Saint Laurent Talk, like years and years ago, or Givenchy Talk, um, and stuff like Victim of the Crime, which is led by Marco. Um, and like I was like standing those groups when I first kind of got on the scene.
So like,
Um,
when did you start with fashion groups on social media? Because I've only
trying
been into it for like 2, 3 years, but it feels like it's existed for longer.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember. I was, it was definitely sort of during my sort of Givenchy kind of era when I bought like literally everything from Givenchy. So it's probably like 2012,
Oh,
that I sort of joined that. Um, but I remember getting a fake pair of Yeezys by mistake. Like, somebody sold me fakes, and I posted them on some sneaker group, and I got ripped to shreds. But then I claimed back on the eBay person. They was all sorted. Um, and they were like the grey ones with the humps on the back. Them ones, like not the
Oh, not the
wavy.
Adidas ones,
No,
the Nike ones.
yeah, Nike. What do they call them?
Like
Nike.
not the Red Octobers, but the
Yeah,
yeah, I know the ones you're talking about.
yeah. So those, and around the same time, I was buying like loads of Givenchy stuff, um, and I'd buy them from those groups, and then that kind of like developed into Saint Laurent and then sort of an interest in Archive Dior from Eddie era.
An
Um,
amazing era.
yeah, so and that kind of like that's why probably I love that kind of like side of fashion more than anything else, just because it's like that's where I started, and it kind of holds sentimental value for me.
Yeah.
That kind of introduction to fashion. So yeah, I was in fashion groups since like trying to think. And like before that, I was in Tumblr, but I can't remember if I was.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about Tumblr. I've never really used it, but I have friends who do, and I know you do it. And I like aspects of it, but it seems kind of hard to get into because I know my friends who use it, they've like really worked to get the feed they want, and it kind of takes effort to find nice accounts and to get into like subcultures. But do you like Tumblr?
Yeah, I was like heavily into it in kind of like um 2009 probably until 2012. Um, and like you'd get some like fashion content on there, um, but not that much really. Like you'd get like I think I got lots of like Givenchy from there as well. I remember really liking like the Watch the Throne kind of graphics and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
There was like loads of like basically people trying to imitate stuff like that. And I did one with like I think it was like a what's that plant that eats flies? A
Um, yeah,
Venus flytrap.
yeah, yeah. The Venus flytrap.
Yeah, I made like some random graphic with like four of those mirrored, and then like pumped up the like saturation to make it like really colorful.
Sounds sick.
Um, yeah, and that got like thousands of notes. And I was like, yes.
Wait, notes. That's likes, right?
Um,
Or is it
it's
is it no? Is that repost or is that like reblog?
notes is like the combination of the both. So
Okay.
it's like total engagement. So
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
likes and reposts. Um, and it's also like the likes on those reposts as well. Um, because like they all accumulate on Tumblr, which I really like because like on Instagram you post something, somebody can screenshot it and post it again, and you kind of don't get that um
Yeah,
the,
they should
the
have a
credit for it.
repost
Yeah,
feature.
there's so many people like reposting stuff and like actually making it a feature would make it so much better. But then we'd see all the same content all the time though.
Yeah, it would get repost. Some things would get reposted a lot.
Yeah,
That is true.
and yeah, we'd see
Maybe
the
it's good
same.
that you can't.
Yeah, I by now I think that. But like when I first started doing Instagram, I was like, why the fuck is there no repost? Because I just like that's literally all you did on Tumblr.
Yeah, and like
Um,
it feels like every other social media has reposting as
yeah,
a feature.
share or something like that. Yeah,
But
but
yeah,
yeah,
let's talk a bit about Eddie Slimane.
okay,
And you've talked a lot about him being your favorite designer and like for a long time. And
yeah.
um, and you also mentioned that you started out with Dolce Gabbana.
Mm.
But so who were your favorites? Like how have your favorites progressed, like from when you first started to who you like now? Because you mentioned Dolce Gabbana and then Dior and then Saint Laurent. Have there been others that were like some designers you really liked, or has it been mostly those three?
Um, so I never really like when I was a student, like there was like literally nobody buying high fashion still. Even though I lived in Manchester and I probably could get access to some of it in Selfridges and Harvey Nichols. Um, like I like for students then, you had to act as if you were broke basically. I don't think there were any students that were like, oh, I'm gonna use my student loan to buy designer clothes, which I'm seeing like literally every student I know. Probably because I'm more in like the fashion culture and I'm in London now.
Yeah,
But
like those
like
groups. Yeah.
loads of students that I know are spending their student loan on off white and shit, and it's like it's so weird to me because like even though I left uni with like £20,000 saved up, um, it was just sort of ingrained into me to like just not spend my money too much. Um, so yeah, after I left uni, I got a job pretty quickly, and that's when I started sort of buying fashion clothes. So I think that's why I, I was more into it then. It's really hard to be into fashion without actually being able to buy the clothes. That's why like when you see somebody like that's into a guy that's into women's wear as just a subject to study, that takes massive dedication because you're not going to wear that clothes ever, but you know everything about it.
Yeah.
It's more than just like a consumer, um, which I like. And any guy that can like talk at length about women's wear, I do admire way more than a guy that can talk about menswear because to some extent you have to know about menswear to wear it in a way.
Yeah.
Um, but there is no like payoff at the end of being into women's wear. But I don't remember how we got onto that.
Yeah, and I've
But yeah,
I've
so
talked like I posted some like once in High Fashion Talk about my ultimate dream in fashion if I would become like a billionaire would just be
mm,
having like Dior haute couture dresses from like Jean Galliano just
yeah,
and just have them in like a mansion just like as art pieces
yeah,
and like sometimes wear them and like go around like Young Thug on his cover
mm,
Jeffrey, you know, with the beautiful dress.
yeah,
But mostly just looking at them because it can be beautiful with just as art, something to look at and study.
yeah, definitely. And it's like, yeah, I think. But getting back to what I was saying, that I think like um, my interest grew definitely when I started being able to buy and wear these clothes. So I was taking more interest in what I wanted to buy rather than sort of a broad interest in fashion. Um, so yeah, but there were loads before that as well that I was kind of like interested in. I'm trying to think like I remember also like when so after the reading at Pandora Japana, I think video podcasts were a big thing, or not a big thing, but they tried to push them. And there was style.com podcasts that were basically Tim Blanks going around the shows with a video camera. I'm not sure where this video content was meant to go, if it was for podcast only or what, but it seemed as if he'd been doing it for years and they just decided to put it on a podcast. Um, and then, yeah, like I literally during Fashion Week, I'd watch them like literally um, every night, like religiously, and I'd watch the same show like 5 times, and they'd have like all the best ones, like um, they'd have like the Dior shows, like I would watch them about 10 times each. Um, and of course, like back then, Men's Fashion Week was smaller. Um, and even if you did a show, it probably wouldn't get covered on style.com. Um, and I think there was a couple of other podcasts. There was Mod TV, um, and yeah, I'd try to watch that. they were less sort of informative. They just kind of show it with some background music. So unless you kind of knew what was going on, like it was hard to decipher what you were seeing. Um, so yeah, that that was I was obsessed with that and kind of, but that was generally like women's wear. Um, and yeah, and like there was I tried to watch stuff like Project Catwalk, Project Runway, and stuff, but that was it's so entertainment based compared to like what I actually enjoy. Um, I never really enjoyed it that much. Um, yeah, I think I remember there was one when I was in uni. I think during my final year, I found this other guy um, called Joel. He's his handle's like Galax, and he's massive now. But I found him like when he was tiny. I think he graduated a year before me. I can't remember.
Huh?
Um, but he wore like Jeremy Scott stuff. And I was like completely obsessed with like how he was actually wearing high fashion. Um, and yeah, I just didn't know where to buy this cool shit. Um, yeah, so and trying to think if there was any other influences along the way. Um, but like lots of the time, I would just literally like Dior. So Top Man actually made like really during the kind of like Dior time. Top Man was actually really good at like doing alternatives.
Oh,
Um, way cheaper, and they had like these really cool like printed T-shirts and stuff. So I was literally spending all my money on actually getting clothes from Top Man, and didn't really know any better. Um, and of course, they kind of jumped on online shopping before any luxury retailer as well. Um, so yeah, it was way easier to actually get stuff from Top Man. Um, so that's kind of what I did.
cool.
Yeah,
So let's talk a bit about Eddie going to Celine. Um,
yeah,
so before, did you think it would be like what he did at Dior and what he did at SLP, or uh, because people talked about it, Celine being kind of different from them, and it ended up being a very SLP-esque show. That's what almost everyone have been saying, that it was very good, but it didn't feel super Celine. What are your
yeah.
thoughts on the whole thing? And like, did you
Um,
like the show?
I think to start with, I did like the show. I think like I'm always gonna like it. And if Eddie does Eddie,
Yeah.
then I'm gonna like it.
Yeah.
Full stop. And I think loads of other people will like it, but they're not the ones talking in fashion. They'll just buy it and wear it. I think um, the main problem is that people think Celine is um, basically what Phoebe did. Um, but like Phoebe literally came into Celine and like completely changed it. Nobody cried then. Um, and yeah, like it was all Phoebe's vision. So it was literally like Phoebe at Celine. So I don't understand why anybody would be annoyed that that's not continued because if he would have tried to copy Phoebe, then there'd be issues then that he'd copied Phoebe. I don't think there's any winning there. And I think Eddie's just like an enfant terrible of um, of the fashion world because he like literally bans um, people from shows and all that kind of shit. And he brought in the rule of like whole look shooting, so you can for any stylist that wants to shoot, it used to be Saint Laurent, you could only order a full look, and you had to shoot it like that as well. You weren't allowed to mix with anything else. I think you could put jewelry from another brand on, and that's it. Um,
So it had to be his vision and his style.
yeah, so that's obviously not very popular with stylists in general. Um,
Well, yeah, it takes their job away from
yeah,
this.
there's literally nothing for them to do, and it's hard to like implement like a full Saint Laurent look into an editorial unless it's like that type of editorial. But then again, people love seeing it, and it's a tricky way to like get every editorial that involving your clothes to be a campaign for your clothes. So he basically created like hundreds of free campaigns, basically, um, which is pretty funny. Um, yeah, so he does stuff. He doesn't care how popular he is in the fashion world because he knows he'll sell to real people anyway. And that I think kind of annoys people regarding him. I think what's also like he's pretty much like the Virgil Abloh of that kind of fashion, which is like he's like he knows what to do. He'll photograph like really cool people um, in the clothes and for the campaigns and stuff. And he did for Saint Laurent. He did like um, uh, Courtney Love. He did Marilyn Manson. Um, he did um, Keith Richards. All these like actually cool people, not these kind of beg people that are trying to get clout.
Yeah, like new influencers. Because
Yeah,
people like Keith Richards are really, he's really a legend. And
yeah,
even though his rock star style, like from a long time ago, maybe was a bit different, it's still, since Eddie did the rock star
mm,
style as well, it was really cool mix of like new and old rock star, but it was still very much the same in
yeah,
a sense.
definitely. And I think but Eddie totally knew what he was doing by shooting them for campaigns and just he'd randomly shoot stuff and just release it, um, just to get content out there. Um, and yeah, he's been doing that for ages. And he knows how to play the sort of marketing game for his clothes, um, without just slopping a logo on it. I don't think like anything had a logo on it at Saint Laurent except for um, they did like a monogram bag, and I don't think they were really Eddie's kind of thing anyway.
Yeah, because I
Um,
was gonna say they have some monogram bags and maybe a belt, but like most of the actual garments, like they never have logos.
no, but you totally know that they're like Saint Laurent,
Yeah,
like when you look at it, and you totally know that Celine is Celine now once you look at it, and it'll just take some time for people to kind of get used to that. Um,
and I also think that a lot of people, including me, didn't
mm,
really know much about Celine before, like Phoebe,
yeah, that's
because
true.
they, like me, got into fashion just within the last couple of years.
Mm,
So my whole perception of Celine, because I never really researched like the brand and its legacy, for
yeah.
me, Celine was just like what Phoebe did, and I saw that and I really liked it. And
Mm,
then it was kind of a big switch to Eddie, but
yeah.
it's very true what you say that it that was her vision and this is his vision,
Mm,
and like brands and designers they always evolve. Um,
yeah.
because if they're stagnant, they're just gonna die or like become tacky.
Yeah. Definitely. And I like Phoebe's work was great. Like it was revolutionary, and I think she's probably going to Chanel, which is why she's taking a few years off now because there'd be a clause in her contract saying that she can't go to another. um, conglomerate um, without having a break in between. So that's probably what's happening. So
Okay,
there's
yeah, yeah.
like literally no point for Phoebe Files to cry because they're going to have her at the biggest brand in the world.
That would be
Um,
really cool as well. I think she could be really
yeah,
cool at Chanel.
yeah, and her ideas align completely with Coco Chanel's stuff as well.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that'd be really interesting. And I love Phoebe's work. Um, but realistically, who actually wore that? Like probably the 1%. Um, and of those, the 1% that want swooshy clothes and stuff. Um, she did do like the iconic bag. That was great, but it's really tacky now. Um, yeah, like um, I don't see any point to sort of trying to hold on to it. Um, and definitely not at the cost of Eddie Slimane. Like it's not his fault. But I think also Celine has like a rich history. Before that, like Michael Kors designed it for a few seasons, and it was actually quite good when
Michael
you
Kors
consider.
designed for Celine?
Yeah,
I have no
Michael
idea.
Kors actually used to be like a really good designer. He's just kind of sold out, which puts salt in the wound. Like he used to make actually like really luxe, sophisticated American clothing. Um, and then I think I can't remember when what the turning point was, but I remember that he did like first collection that was like colorful and tacky and shiny, um, and it made an impression, but it was just bad. But yeah, his collections of Celine were actually really nice and like really went into like the sort of the Luke's side of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and then I can't remember names for designers before that, but like Celine goes back to the 70s. Well, it goes back to the 20s, but like it was pretty big in the 70s, um, when they did kind of like Luke's sort of form, hugging shapes, and a lot of black, which is pretty much what Eddie Slimhane's doing now. Um,
Yeah, and very
uh,
much not what Phoebe did.
Yeah, not at all. So like if anything, Phoebe's like ruined the DNA of the brand, um, but done it well, and now she's fucked it up for everybody else. Um, but yeah, people have like short memories, I guess, or just lack of knowledge, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's a lot like lack of knowledge,
Yeah,
including me. Yeah, because I didn't know like
yeah,
Celine before Phoebe.
and I think like comments like Tim Blanks came forward saying that um, Eddie introduced a toxic masculinity and all that kind of stuff. Um, I think that was quite unnecessary. Like, I don't, I don't see how like empowering women to wear sexy dresses is toxic at all. Um, so
Yeah, yeah, it's like I can see how people think that, but there's also the other side of the coin with it being empowering and them
yeah,
being themselves and proud. It's a
yeah,
very difficult thing.
yeah.
I don't
But
really
I
know
think,
where I stand, but
yeah,
I definitely see both sides of the whole thing.
mm, yeah. But if you do take a look, if you take the vision or the side of that it is toxic masculinity, then you have to also acknowledge that Phoebe Celine was only for a certain type of woman that is sort of more conservative. Um, and are you like by only doing that those clothes? Are you saying that that's the only way women should dress?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
she did. She very much did clothes for how women were supposed to be, and the whole thing with Emily Oberg and it being good for moms with children, so they could put their children's toys in the pockets or whatever it was.
Yeah, yeah,
That's also like, yeah, it's good, but then it's like, is that all a woman is? Like a mother who's putting toys in her
yeah. Toys in
clothes?
the clothes all the
They can
time when she's
also
not
be
working. Yeah,
like sexy and powerful.
yeah, and like oh, she doesn't have to have children. She could be anything, and and I would accept that as just a proposition for one woman. So why is Eddie Slimaine's clothes not accepted as a proposition for one woman? A woman that's probably different from what Phoebe was selling to, but still a woman, still just as important, still as valid, um, and deserves to get luxury clothes that she wants. And there's probably more of them, to be honest, or more of them buying designer clothes. Because once you get um, a child is a very large cost. So
Yeah,
most
and like
people
you probably
stop
don't want to,
buying designer clothes unless you're working in fashion.
and you might not want to get like a 500-pound sweater if you're gonna have a child puking on it,
Yeah, exactly.
and
So
like playing in sandboxes with designer
exactly.
jeans.
So it's like I think the people making these arguments are a bit away with the fairies about how real women, actual real women dress, and think they know about how real women dress, which is hilarious because they. It's kind of like the argument of like um, white liberals like standing up for black people all the time, kind of that kind of thing. They're standing up for people that they don't really know anything about.
Yeah, I see that.
Like there's a magazine here in London. I probably shouldn't name them, but they literally like most of the editorial staff are white. I think they have few token black peoples, and yeah, all they run is like campaigns on anti-hate and sort of empowering black people and stuff like that, which is fine, but like you're not doing it on the staff level, and like who are you to talk for these people?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's like a huge sort of can of worms to open.
But so we talked a bit about, well, quite a lot about Eddie and Celine and like the matching process of a designer and a fashion house.
Hmm.
But if we talk about it in a more general sense, do you think it's really important to find like, okay, we have this house and now only like these two designers, for example, can go to it, or do you think virtually any designer can go to like any house? Um,
Um, I think it's more important on the business side because um, Celine was selling so well, and that they grew the infrastructure. They hired loads of like pattern cutters and stuff in the design studio. They opened boutiques across the world and staffed them all, um, and sort of did all of that and expanded the brand. Um, and very much, if they um, they had to hire a designer that could match that in sales. Um, so I think the decision was very much not creative, but actually business driven. Um, so yeah, who was available and who can actually sell as much, and Eddie is like the clear answer to that question, in my opinion,
yeah,
because not many other people are available. And like I think people would argue like, oh, you can hire from within, like Alessandro at Gucci, and that works out well. And that was really kind of lucky, but also Gucci was pretty much failing at the time, or it wasn't selling as well as it should be.
Yeah,
Um,
Gucci really turned around the last, I don't know,
yeah,
5 or something years. Like so
but
huge.
when you're kind of like failing, you can sort of take risks like that, or you should, especially when you're part of conglomerate. You can because you're going to get money from other places to kind of boost everything. Um, but yeah, um, it's like it's more like the appointment of Demna at Balenciaga. They just wanted somebody who's already selling, so they got Demna, and it was all good,
Where
and he
where
sold a
was
lot.
he like directly before Balenciaga?
He just did Vetements for a few years. Before that, he was at Louis Vuitton Men's, but he was like just a staff level designer, not creative director.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And apparently, like Vetements wasn't like just him. It like started out as being um, loads of designers that were on staff level in um, different big luxury houses in Paris,
Yeah,
and they
wasn't
all
it like
kind
a
of like
big, like almost an experiment? They just brought a lot of people in and tried
yeah,
crazy visions they had,
yeah,
like a
they
huge
all did
design team.
just what they wanted to do for a change. Um,
And that's really cool that they tried something and it's not just limited by, okay, I'm at this house and we have this reputation, we have to do
mm,
this and we have to get these numbers or whatever.
yeah, definitely. It's crazy how they like on their second season that they managed to kind of do that. But it was because like they got all the kind of like not the best, but probably the most like they were good designers at different houses all together with different expertise, different connections and stuff. So they did manage to sort of put that hoodie on Kanye and stuff on like that.
And then it
Um,
just like went viral.
yeah, um, but they totally knew what they were doing because, like, obviously they'd been doing it for other fashion houses. But obviously, there's like when you're at a fashion house, you can't get everything approved because there'll be like a hierarchy of people telling you you can't do this. Um, so at Vetements, it was removing that hierarchy, making it more into democracy. So I think that's how it worked.
Yeah. But what would be your like ultimate match if you could just decide that one designer goes to like one house? Um, what combo would you want to see?
Um, I want to see Eddie back at Dior. Because yeah, I don't know. I think Dior probably has the best like atelier, um, maybe behind Chanel, but I'm not sure. Although Celine has a sick atelier, and they're probably going to build that up massively now as well because they're doing couture.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I like. I really loved Riccardo Tisci before, but I think he's much more on the men's side. He's much more ready-to-wear designer.
Yeah, I
Um,
was not a big fan of his Burberry now. Did
yeah, I
you?
kind of liked bits of it, but I think as a whole, the collection kind of fell flat.
Yeah,
I was really hoping that he wouldn't do Novacek, um, and I was hoping that he would treat the sort of the new monogram in a tasteful way as well. But yeah, there was some tasteful treatment of it, but it wasn't all tasteful, I guess.
yeah. My
But
my combo would probably be like Raf Simons at Margiela. I think that would could be really cool. And I looked it up and apparently he got offered it in 2009 when Margiela like stepped down.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Um, but then yeah, and like Vetman, instead they kind of had like a team of like designers when it
Mm.
wasn't really known. So that was like
Yeah,
the same thing with just having lots of people instead of one
yeah,
big name.
Mm. Yeah, I think there's something to be said about it because I don't know, having like a visual like um one point of like leadership is kind of weird. Like, why is that the only way that we do stuff?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
and
that's true.
it's like the decisions are always like driven by like there'll be data from the merchandising. There'll be like loads of like sub designers suggesting things, and they're just kind of like a manager, but like why don't the sub designers actually bring like make the ideas, get the credit, and then take the sort of weight of the creative director's shoulders off? I don't know.
I think like just in general, it feels like more people should get credit in the process of fashion. And like one thing that's been, well, that's like a personal thing, but
Mm,
when I've modeled
mm,
and they post it on Instagram, like why don't they tag me? Because like because that would be a big part for me, like getting my name out and getting my
yeah.
credit. Because like yeah, sure, I get paid and everything, and that's really good, but it's also like that could be a big thing, but they almost never do unless it's like a big like
Mm,
icon or whatever. And
mm,
just stuff like that, it feels like in the age of social media, they could really help so many people and like by just giving credit and like showing their names. And
yeah.
it's not only for models. That was just like my
Mm,
example from what I've experienced. But
yeah,
um,
definitely. I
also
think
like with the sub designers, like it's not just
mm,
one name. Uh,
no, yeah. I think definitely like everything, like just the whole world, like in media in general, is going into a more personable direction. Um, so like the editors, online editors for Vogue now kind of like have to produce all their own content. They like use their own camera to take a photo, then write it up and produce the shoot and everything themselves. Um, so I think everything's going back to this kind of like one person producing content and putting it out there rather than um, it all being done under one name. And I think that should be like, I think models and photographers and stylists should become more like personalities rather than sort of hide behind a publication. And like magazines should push that because it's actually going to benefit them at the end of the day if like a model like is representing them basically rather than just being a face.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I'm literally I think it's going to go that way, where people are more ready to tag. Um, but I think the problem is that the people in charge of doing these things aren't necessarily social media savvy, and they don't know the way things are going. They don't know that they need to tag people and stuff like that. Don't realize the power of it, um, which is pretty sad, really, because there's so many people out there that actually have the talent to actually do stuff like that, but don't because they haven't worked somewhere for 2 years or whatever. And you could be doing something completely wrong and irrelevant, but your boss doesn't know that you're doing that for 2 years and then claim that you're more qualified for a social media job, which really annoys me.
yeah, I think social media actually has more depth to it than a lot of people think, and um, it's
Yeah.
not just like running an account or whatever. There's a
Mm,
lot to it. Um, it has so much power, uh,
yeah.
and it's actually really hard. When we started with high fashion talk and when we started our Instagrams, I learned
Mm,
so much from you when you just talked about like the different strategies and how you have to do certain things to get engagement and just how much science there's to it. There's there's such a huge thing,
Yeah, it is just there's so much to
like
it.
behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like even like in DMs, you have to like anybody's DMs now is like customer services. You have to be nice and you have to answer everything, and it's like it's a lot of work.
And then it's
But
like, what kind of personality should you have? Should it be super professional or kind of laid back? And
yeah, there's so much to it. Crazy.
um, but yeah, let's move on. So, if we talk about like traditional haute couture, if we think like 100 years ago or 70 years ago, with like old, like YSL or Dior, Chanel, like everything like that,
Mm.
versus like new high end, and not just like the streetwear hype that's been the last year, but if we think about the last 10, 20 years,
Mm.
um, like, do you enjoy both parts, and would you want to wear both parts if you like had the money, or is it mostly the the newer, the more modern stuff that interests you, or how? Yeah, what
Um.
do you what do you think about old high fashion versus new?
So I think um there's like the creative thought that went into the sort of old high fashion um was way purer, and um all the stuff we remember anyway definitely had like more thoughts into it. But then again, there was a massive disparity. Like Saint Laurent would do like the ballet, or was it the opera? Um, those collections. It was the ballet russe.
Oh, he did the Valeris as well, because
Yeah.
that was also in the in the 1910s, with a okay, this I forgot the name, but a huge designer from like the 1910s who did with the Belarus.
Oh, I have some vague recollection of these, but I know Saint
But
Laurent
yeah,
did.
I think he might have done a collection as well. Um,
Yeah, like the Saint Laurent like ballet russe collection was like his big like collection that made him like a household name. Um, because it was so big and so good. Um, and yeah, there's like I feel those sort of classical references. Um, they seem way more respected and appreciated than maybe some newer reference, which are basically references to how we live now. Um, but I don't think that referencing how we live now is necessarily a bad thing either. Um,
yeah, it was
because
sorry, it was his fall winter collection in 1976. So he did do one,
yeah,
Belarus.
hmm
And it was like so if I just pull the quick history of it, there was Diaghilev, um, who was a Russian guy who took the this ballet, Belarus, which means like Russian ballet,
hmm
and he took it to Paris, and it was a very revolutionizing, and it was new, and it was very Oriental inspired.
mm,
And then there was a designer who made a collection of it, which was like huge and kind of like almost revolutionary.
okay. Who was that designer?
I'm trying to find the name. I just had a like a test on this a couple weeks ago. I'm taking fashion studies at Stockholm University.
Okay,
But yeah, sorry, you can talk. I'll
uh,
find it in
cool.
just a
Um,
sec.
yeah, so in a way, like those classical references are more appreciated and sort of esteemed. But I do think that um, the references to everyday life and how we dress, even in a sort of um, a sort of tongue-in-cheek way, like how Vêtements does. Um, it's still very valid, and in some ways it's kind of better because you're not just referencing directly to how they look, but you're kind of referencing the sort of idiosyncrasies of how they dress and why they dress like that. Um, the sort of thing like wearing oversized clothes because they're kind of um, reminiscent of clothes that have been handed down and they don't fit you,
Yeah.
um, and stuff like that. I think is still very valid, and even so, like much more relevant. Um, but they may not be timeless. That they're very much anchored in this point in time, um, where we like I don't know if like hand me downs are a thing anymore. Um, like because people just sell clothes, so um, it is like getting clothes from your cousin is not is something that some people have still have memories of. Um, so it's very pertinent now when those people who used to have to get clothes from their cousin that they'd grown out of now actually buying them for £700. So that kind of works now. But in maybe like 5 years, 10 years, like that won't be as like that'll be something that you read in textbooks and you don't really comprehend.
And like I have two older brothers, so like I
Mm,
definitely got a lot of clothes from them
mm,
because like even though we never had it like tough with money in my family like that, it's still like
yeah,
it was still just getting clothes for them because it was unnecessary to buy that much.
yeah, yeah. I
And
I don't remember getting that many hand-me-downs, but I remember my mum giving my clothes away um, to other people because I used to be like way bigger than all my um, friends and all my sort of people that I knew.
okay, yeah, yeah.
Um, so like when I was kind of done with clothes, like she'd give them away to like her friends' children or whatever. Just yeah. So I kind of remember it in that way. Um, so yeah, it's something that maybe like we remember, but I don't think that kids like growing up this day will have a concept of pretty much,
Yeah, I
um,
can see that.
which is really interesting.
I found
Um,
the my notes from the
oh,
1910s.
so
So Orientalism played a big part in inspiration. The
mm,
artist Leon Bakst illustrated modern dancers, and there were these ballerists, the Russian ballet, who
hmm
were against traditional Russian dancers, and Parisians loved it. And there was this guy then Sergei Diaghilev who took it to Paris, and it was described as sexualization mixed with elegance. And then the designer Paul Poiret, and he has been credited to be the first modern designer and the first celebrity designer.
mm,
And he was a freelance designer who started in 1903 and rose to fame around 1910 with a collection he did inspired by the Belarus.
mm,
And his designs didn't require corsets, which was very liberating for women because it became
mm,
super popular, and that was like before that everyone had to wear the corset. Well, that was disappearing the early 1900s, but he was a part of it as well.
yeah,
And he had like big parties for his collections and um,
mm,
at Le Jardin et l'Hôtel, uh, Monsieur Poiret. And he was a part of introducing photography into fashion as well.
oh wow.
So yeah, a short history class.
Yeah, I really don't know enough about Poirier.
Yeah, me
Um,
neither. Like I just knew the name, but nothing about him before this. So it's really cool to see that. So he was like the first really like actually famous
yeah,
designer, and then Yves Saint Laurent taking inspiration from him
mm,
and like doing a collection very much like it, but still a fresh take. It's
yeah. And
is
I
really cool.
feel, I think brands that are still around today are really sort of bad at rewriting fashion history. So Chanel have like made like loads of videos about the story of Coco Chanel and this and that. Um, and they credit her for like for being the first designer not to use corsets in clothes.
Because that's the narrative they want to tell. Like,
Yeah, literally, they want like that narrative and her to be sort of a hero for that. But she was really just like following that trend. She might have been part of it.
yeah, and she was a bit involved with this. She also had a Russian-inspired collection in 19, I believe, 22, because
hmm.
she had a Russian, like a lover, or like a love interest.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and that guy was also responsible for getting her to know the person who would go on to create like Chanel Number 5, her her
Ah,
iconic
yeah.
perfume.
Hmm.
So she also had some Russian inspiration.
Yeah. Um, but I think like during that time, like lots of people weren't wearing necessarily like designer clothes, and like designers weren't the size they are now. Like they would be like maybe a small like atelier in a city, and they'd make clothes for like a select few, but not like
Yeah,
there's
like the
like
top 1%
thousands
realistic.
of people wearing Chanel now. Like it would be probably like 100 back then.
Yeah, exactly.
And then but what they do is like you'd get like Vogue would actually publish like the pattern for you to make the clothes yourself,
Yeah,
um, with their magazine, and that would be like how fashion worked. You just buy the pattern to copy it. Um,
and like you never see designers doing that now.
no,
The only thing I can think of is like Margiela has posted some things, including one like making a shirt out of a sock, like a t-shirt out of like
yeah,
a couple
yeah,
pairs of
yeah.
socks.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah,
it was totally different back then. And I agree with you saying like it was more pure back then because now because of it's so much business and it's influencing and it's about
mm,
an image. But before, sure it was as well business, but it was also very like
yeah.
pure and about the art.
I I think that might be the case, but I also have a sort of niggly feeling that we it's just that the artistic side has kind of like sustained through history, whereas like we don't have the sort of um, the information or the context regarding the business side. So like we don't see that as much, and obviously it's not documented as much because the designers don't want to be seen as like good because they had good business, be seen as good because they had good fashion.
Yeah.
But like especially at Saint Laurent, like Pierre Berge was um, as important as Saint Laurent to the brand, um, in actually getting it off the ground and making it big. Um, so yeah, it's I think maybe some of the commercial collections have just been forgotten.
Yeah. Um, okay, so my next question is it's really short but could have a long answer. Do you think fashion is art?
Do I think fashion is art? Um, it really depends how you define art, um, and um, in some cases it is, some cases it isn't. Um, some people say that art can't have you can't be doing art because of commercial thing, but then like pop art is all about like making it worth the money and making money from it.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think it is. mm, It is in lots of cases um, art as valid as any other, but it's also design, and design isn't necessarily art because art doesn't have to have a purpose in life other than to like just be there. Um, but design has to have a purpose and a customer and a user in mind, which fashion does. Because you, even like the most outlandish things has to attach to the body in some way. Um, Although a collection that doesn't attach to the body would be interesting, maybe. Um, but yeah, I think in the broader sense, yes, it is an art, and you can make it the as much of a point as you want with art, with fashion, and there's just an added element of that you wear it and show it to the world on a daily basis.
Yeah. And so I think most people would agree that like designing clothes is art because it's creating and it's creative. But
Mm.
so also, would you consider it when you're wearing clothes and when you're like you've bought specific items and you're constructing an outfit, would you see that as art as well because you're like expressing yourself, or does it not really qualify because everyone do it? Or do you think wearing clothes is is art?
I mean, it probably could be. Um, I wouldn't consider it on a daily basis. Um, but you make a creative statement with your outfit every day. Like even if it is the statement like I'm not subscribing to fashion today, I have a hangover. That's still a statement that's being made. um, and who's to say that that isn't an artistic statement when um, a bed of a depressed person put in a gallery is an art piece? Um, so yeah, art is only art when you say it's art, and it's always art when you say it's art. So yeah, it's a bit like I don't know. I don't think too much about what is art and what isn't art. I don't think it really helps anything to define that. You don't need to define it in a way.
That's a valid point.
What difference does it make if you do say this is art? Okay, I'm still gonna wear it. Um,
So, going off that, um, in high fashion talk and other groups, people talk a bit about being interested in fashion versus being interested in clothes.
mm,
What do you think about that?
um,
Like people using it, and do you agree with it or not? And how would you describe the two?
so I think people interested in clothes literally have this kind of like formulaic about how things look together, and it stems from like the people that literally wear like match red things, like red shoes, red tracksuit, red cap, and it kind of like these people think they're like into fashion, and they're really just like into wearing clothes that kind of go together, and they've kind of like evolved from that, but haven't come as far as to see like what they're actually doing with clothes. And of course, like in the nature of like you're still making a statement even if you're not trying to. um, they're still they're making a statement. So they're partaking in fashion, but they're not consciously doing it, so that they can't be interested in it in a way. Um, and when you sort of try to explain, you're telling me this with this outfit means this, or reminds me of this, or references this, they just don't get it, and they just kind of want to say, "Oh, it's just clothes." Well, it's not. Um,
Yeah, that really annoys me when people like, yeah, what's the big deal? It's just clothes. Even when people do it like in fashion groups, because then it's like, why are you here then if you see it as something as
yeah,
trivial? Because yeah,
yeah,
sure, for some people it is, but for us who have this as a passion, or maybe even a profession, it's
mm,
obviously not just clothes. It
no,
it has an amazing depth.
yeah, and I think that there's lots of people some making these comments, like people in power that just say like off the hand statements like it's just clothes, or um, I think somebody quoted Kim Jones saying everything's streetwear because you wear it on the street. Like people aren't getting the irony of these statements, and they're taking them literally. Um, and yeah, that's kind of like not very good for
Yeah, because that just feels like a chick response, like a
yeah,
kind of fun thing, but there's elements to it. You can't
yeah,
just take that literally because obviously someone as Kim Jones doesn't view it that simple.
no. Um, but it's like it's just a stupid question to ask something so they give you a stupid answer. Um, so yeah, but it's kind of frustrating when like it gets reported on in a serious manner. And yeah, they it's it's frustrating that people like um I don't know. I just wish everybody had an interest in fashion and kind of like could understand that language and discuss it intelligently. Um, but some people just don't want to, and some people just don't know enough to be able to do it.
Yeah. And my last topic of this interview is so this fashion week saw quite a bit of change with it going a lot away from the streetwear hype that's been
Mm,
prevalent for the last couple of years. And do you
mm,
think so this feels very much like a reaction. I think everyone can agree on that. It's like a reaction to what it's been like. But do you think
yeah.
this will stay, or do you think streetwear will still be very prevalent within high fashion because of internet and everything, or do you think they will separate even more now? Like, where do you think it will go, like the next season and maybe in 5 years and 10 years?
So like the main thing is this is just a cycle, and like me being into fashion for sort of years now, um, I've seen it happen like a few times. Um, so of course, streetwear is gonna be less relevant in high fashion for a bit, and then it'll come back again. Um, but what's interesting is that um, last time streetwear kind of went away, um, the internet and social media wasn't as prevalent. So it really went kind of underground and into real life societies where it actually also um, sort of um, it developed a bit and got better because it was out of the limelight for a bit and they had to actually try harder. Um, Whereas I don't think now with social media, it won't really go away. It will just separate. It'll go from like the high fashion sphere, be considered like really cringy um, by most, but it won't be gone. And I don't think um, the companies will have to try as hard to come back again. Um, so they'll just kind of float around. They'll still make money off sort of impressionable kids, probably, And it'll be interesting seeing how they kind of interact and when will so the big fashion houses that have been slow to kind of jump on that kind of streetwear thing, and like houses of like Vuitton have like really jumped on it way too hard. I think they're kind of a bit fucked now because streetwear is dying. They just assigned the biggest streetwear designer. But then again, like Kim Jones originally was a streetwear designer before he started working at Dunhill, and he adapted. Virgil might be able to adapt to like the new kind of wave of less hashtag streetwear kind of dressing. Um, but yeah, I think what's going to be interesting as well is like how well logos work on social media. Um, what will happen when logos kind of fall out of favor, or will that stop logos from falling out of favor? Will um, will monograms be tasteful enough for people? But I kind of don't think they are, and therefore, should designers be looking um, to make clothes that are so recognizable that they get likes? Um, and how do you do that? It's a really interesting subject. Um, yeah. What else? But I think it's definitely coming. We've reached like a point of oversaturation of kind of bait, hype beastie logos, streetwear, everything being so casual.
Yeah.
And I think definitely there's a reaction to that by we've already seen on the catwalk, where people will be wearing more. I don't know if it's even formal. It's just not that kind of mood. It's like the completely opposite is kind of more rock star, um, which does have groundings in like suits and stuff as well. Um, so yeah, but there's also like it's interesting to see like there's two like phases of change happening. There's like lots of people are crediting people wearing trainers all the time to fashion going more casual, the mainstream going more casual in general, and offices allowing people to wear trainers to work and stuff like that. So I don't know if that will go back or if that's on a different cycle from the whole like streetwear to rockstar cycle. Um, but yeah, it's an interesting time to see, and it'll be way more heavily documented this time. um, so it'll be really interesting to actually be able to track these changes. And they'll be seen through the eyes of many rather than through the eyes of sort of a few fashion editors, which is a really interesting thing to see.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So the last part of this interview, I made a post in High Fashion Talk yesterday, asking for some questions people might have for you.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is from Jeremiah Sanchez. What's your favorite book or magazine that you own? Like fashion related, I assume.
Book or magazine? I've got Stage by Eddie Samham, of course, which is like
The
a
one and
photo book.
only.
But it's published by Karl Lagerfeld's publishing company, 7L. Um, and So that's pretty iconic to start with. And then it's full of um, photos of iconic musicians, um, including like Amy Winehouse, Pete Doherty, um, Razorlight, I think. Um, and I don't know, it's got a really nostalgic feeling to. So my coming of age sort of time was around that time when like Amy Winehouse was big and Razorlight had number one and stuff and Cortinas and stuff like that. Um, so the book is very sort of reminiscent of that for me. Um, with it also being like Eddie Saman, who's like my favorite designer and probably my favorite photographer. Um, yeah, the sort of combination of that makes it pretty important for me. Trying to think if there's any other books. I do have like the RAF books, like Redux and Fourth Sex, um, and they're very good. But I just don't feel that they're as iconic in a way. Um, feel that they're made with the sort of the idea behind them was to make like an iconic book collecting loads of iconic things, which kind of in a way makes the authenticity of the iconicness less so.
Yeah, yeah. My dream book would, like, I don't own it, but I would want to, the Raf Simons Isolated Heroes. He just like picked people up from the street and shot them.
Oh yeah, I think I have that one as well. I can't remember.
Oh shit.
There's one rap book I don't have, but I can't remember which one. And they're all back in Wales, so I can't really check that easily.
Yeah. So the next question is from Philip Axelsson. How many hours a day do you spend thinking about different aspects of fashion and thinking about questions around fashion?
So I think pretty much everything I do relates to fashion in some way or another. Um,
I can see that.
even like because fashion is like in a wider sense, it is just basically culture and pop culture. So like even if I'm sort of watching a YouTube video, like I watched the Shane Dawson thing with Jake Paul last night, which is not really relevant to fashion, but I was literally like looking what they were wearing, and it was really interesting to see that Jake Paul was wearing a Helmut Lang t-shirt in one of it. But I was also thinking, how could I implement like that kind of documentary style in the fashion world and do fashion documentaries for YouTube? Um, what does this new sort of documentary style where we kind of the documentary is like pushing Shane as much as it is a focus on Jake Paul. Um, we're getting to know Shane way more because out of 5 episodes so far, I think 3 of them didn't even include Jake Paul.
What is this, like a series? I haven't heard of this.
Oh,
I
yeah,
must have
it's
missed it.
basically Shane Dawson has done like 2 documentaries before this. One with Tana Mojo, who did like a a video a VidCon, but it was like the anti-VidCon, and it all went wrong. So Shane kind of did documentary to try and like set the record straight, and he got loads of views. So he decided to do one on Jeffree Star, who's a makeup YouTuber, um, and that was a massive hit because it kind of went into the life of Jeffree Star and kind of um, looked into all those aspects of his life and dissected his personality. Um, now he's doing one on Jake Paul, who's obviously a massive YouTuber, and like everybody, not everybody, but loads of people hate him.
Yeah.
Um, so he's doing like a documentary, and he's like focusing on whether Jake Paul is a sociopath. Um, and then going into like looking into that, and then he's meeting Jake Paul for 2 days, and yeah, but it's like more importantly, it's hitting like so many people. There's like um I think he's got more views on these YouTube videos than literally like Stranger Things get on their episodes. Um so it's like now like that you those YouTube videos are more um popular than normal TV or Netflix or anything. Um and they're for free online. So it's crazy. Um, I think um, what's good and what's like what you can take from it is that people want higher quality content, not necessarily higher quality production, just like less kind of trivial. Like I do my boyfriend's makeup or what's in my wardrobe, my top 5 shoes. I think people are kind of over that now, and want actually like more personal content, more
Like this.
possibly, yeah. Um, they want more in depth and sort of real stuff. Um,
Yeah, like real, but also not shallow.
yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, I'm always thinking about how to implement that in fashion, how to implement that in high fashion talk. Um, what other things I should do if I should consider in my photography or videography work for other companies. Um, if there's a gap in the market for me to do something somewhere, um, what skills do I need to improve to do that? What equipment might I need to do that? Um, so yeah, I would say like 99% of my day is spent thinking about fashion, and I probably don't do enough of the other stuff because I enjoy the fashion too much, and I should probably spend more of my time sorting out boring things like bills and stuff like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, so the last question from High Fashion Talk is from, okay, I'm gonna butcher this name, Dino Mulalic. Yeah, sorry. Um, so his question is, what do you think will happen of photographers in the future of the fashion world, as well as your opinions on how freelance Instagram photographers are becoming famous and now shoot photos for big brands, magazines, celebrities, etc. So yeah, what do you think will happen of photographers in the future in fashion, and what do you think about freelance Instagram photographers?
um, so I think um, photography follows a fashion very similar to how design, um, and I think a lot of it is led by what's accessible to the mainstream, um, and it like for several years now, a real professional photo has been sort of alienating, um, especially on Instagram anyway, for the mainstream. Um, and they have always preferred sort of fit pics with taken an iPhone very kind of flat, boring, um, flat background. So, but more recently, the iPhone has got a better camera that can do sort of portrait mode, or the aperture is wider, so you just get more shallow depth of field anyway. Um,
Yeah, iPhone photographs are like surprisingly good these days.
yeah, and they're putting more sort of creative things into it that are sort of inspired by old photographic techniques. Um, so yeah, if you and then people really like when you can do a good version of something basic rather than a good version of something good, or a bad version of something good anyway. Um, so yeah, I think it's good that the mainstream is kind of developing more to have a more classical taste of what good photography is, rather than being hyped up about tacky gimmicks. Like there's loads of like Instagram photographers that just literally do so gimmicks. Like there's somebody that does photos at night with sort of pink and blue neon lights, and the neon lights are all photoshopped in. They look terrible, but because they're always pink and blue and the same style, um, people kind of like they know what they're getting. They know that they like that style. They're never gonna not like that style if they're following. And they see other people liking that style, so they kind of hop on. Um, so yeah, like, but I think people are kind of getting over gimmicks like that, and even like film photography to a great extent is a lot of it is gimmicks. So like these like color shifts that happen when you have like a plastic lens, and um, the saturation you get when you flash during night and stuff. Um, but I think the content is way more important um, on Instagram, and not like what the person is doing or how the photo is constructed, but like who the person is and what the clothes are. Um, so it's just kind of unfortunate that you only get liked if the person knows that clothing or knows that person. Um, and yeah, I don't know. There's more and more influencers and stuff popping up, so it should get easier. Um, and eventually, everybody is gonna have such an equal platform again. I'm not sure, um, but yeah, it's for photographers on Instagram. Unless you're sort of taking photos of famous people or famous clothes, it's a bit. Oh, you're doing a gimmick. It's a bit bleak right now, but I think in the future it'll get better. As people start to appreciate real photography a bit more. Um, but then again, like the people that really appreciated real photography were on Instagram early on. Now they've kind of left, or they're not that interested anymore, because the overwhelming majority that have come on that have no clue. Um, so yeah,
Yeah,
have I answered the question
yeah,
completely?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So now, like the final segment of this, I have 7 quick questions for you. Um, so we'll start with Eddie SLP or Eddie Dior, if you had to choose.
Um, Dior. I think he did
Okay, yeah.
more interesting things. Yeah.
Okay. Raf Simmons or Margiela?
Ooh. Raph, just because I'm more interested in his youth. sort of inspired stuff rather than the flighty stuff from Margiela.
Demna Balenciaga or Vetements?
Um, Vetements is more creative. You can read it into that as much as you want.
Old Balenciaga or Demna Balenciaga?
Um, Demna Balenciaga.
Skinny jeans or white trousers?
Um, I'm gonna say skinny jeans.
Oof. Oh yeah, you posted about that like a week ago in High Fashion Talk about how you actually like
Yeah,
skinny jeans, but they've gotten a lot of flack. I,
yeah.
I have some like SLP, what are they called, DO2. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I have one of those pairs, but they ripped like more than they were supposed to, so
Oh
gotta have to
shit.
sew them up before I can use them.
Lol.
Sneakers or boots?
Um, I'm at the moment wearing sneakers. I don't see myself wearing that many boots, to be honest, even though I'd want to.
Um, and the final question of this interview: what are the top three fashion eras of all time?
Top three fashion what?
Eras, like
Eras.
yeah, era. Sorry,
It's okay.
not my first language. Uh, so I know
um,
like yeah, Eddie Dior era or whatever.
yeah, probably the Eddie at Dior. Um, then I think the stuff Demna at like the start of Vetements and kind of like that start of Balenciaga as well was epic. And then um, I feel like I shouldn't pass judgment on anything that I wasn't alive to or old enough to experience. So I could say like the commentaries and stuff and all that, but I wasn't really there to experience it, so I can't
Well, yeah, it
really
was
say.
before we were born.
Yeah. So like you can only take what other people have said, so you can't really judge it for yourself. So even though there's probably some of those eras are way more epic, for me it was probably Ricardo when he started doing um, the season before the Rottweiler, the kind of white clothes with the like the face mask and stuff like that, and until he did too much like basketball stuff. Um, yeah, there's like three good seasons in there. The last
Okay,
good
yeah.
good season was like the baseball collection.
Yeah, that was it for me. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview with me.
No problem. My pleasure.
Yeah, it's been really interesting, and I hope people will watch this and learn more about you. Um,
Yeah,
and
hopefully.
hopefully, I will do more interviews like this in the future. So
Hmm.
if people have suggestions for people I should interview from the community, you can comment that. I will make a post when I release this video in High Fashion Talk. And
Cool.
as you can see on my screen, here's Iolo's Instagram at Iolc, and you can find me at Ivor Harby. Uh, yeah, that was it. Thank you so much.
Cool. No problem. Thank you.
And